Hello, my name is Liam Toohey and I will be doing my project on coal consumption and production. To start off, I will be looking at coal consumption and production across Utah and Texas, two states that are generally thought of to produce a large amount of coal due to the fact that they're both western states. The United States is home to the largest estimated recoverable reserves of coal in the world, so sources say. And my question for this project will be, how do these states differ in terms of their coal production and consumption? For my abstraction, I will be looking at energy and the energy data list, which includes reports which focus primarily on, for me in this project, coal. Each of these reports has a number of properties relevant to my project. The first one includes consumption, which is a dictionary property, and below that is commercial, which is a further dictionary property, and then coal, which is a float property and represents the amount of coal commercially consumed in a particular state. Expenditure is a dictionary property. Commercial is a further dictionary property, and coal is an integer property and represents the amount of expenditure or resources that is put into the particular industry in a certain state. We have production, which is also a float with coal and represents the amount of coal produced in a state. And we have state, which is a string value and is used to pick out a particular state to look at. For example, Utah or Texas. My data structure was very large, actually. So I have the first half here on this slide and the second half at the very end. But this diagram shows the structure of the abstracted data set energy. And there are certain keys that identify what I use in my project. Coal is a float value in the dictionary commercial and consumption keys. Coal is an integer value associated with the dictionary commercial and expenditure keys. And again, coal is a float value associated with the production dictionary key. Finally, state is a dictionary set with a string for the different states that are available in this data set. So there were also a few limitations with the data set that I found. And one of these includes the fact that this data does not provide information about specific counties or cities within the different states. So say, for example, I want to look at a particular city that I believe is really is a really big coal producer in a certain state. I would be limited in my ability to focus on this specific spot. The data set also does not incorporate a long time frame, but only covers about 50 years of data, so from 1960 until 2010. And it may be argued that this is the time when coal production really got important to the American economy and so forth, and historical facts that may explain why the data set was so limited. And finally, the data set does not allow for background information. For example, what part of Utah or Texas are important producers of coal. This information would have to come from different sources. So my first question is, what is the trend over time from 1960 to 2010 of the coal production rates in Utah and Texas? Coal production across Texas, Utah, and Colorado from 1960 to 2010, where blue is Texas and orange is Utah. So this graph shows that in both Utah and Texas, the rate at which coal production increases is relatively the same, and this may be attributed to the fact that new technology and different insight was used to find better ways to manufacture quicker coal production methods. This increase in coal production may also be attributed to the increase in dependency on coal over this time period and the money spent to extract coal. So question 2 is, how much commercial coal is actually consumed in Utah and Texas? So just to have a quick oversight, we have coal consumption across the entire United States represented as a histogram, and it looks at the commercial coal consumption against the amount of coal used measured in 10 million tons of coal. And this pretty much just provides a reference point for the next two graphs. So frequency of coal consumption in Texas represents pretty much how much coal is consumed in Texas. The x-axis shows the amount of coal consumption, and the y-axis shows the amount of coal used in 10 million tons. This graph shows significantly more coal is consumed in Texas as opposed to Utah, as we will see in the next graph. So for Utah, when comparing the frequency and the y-axis between Utah and Texas, we see that Utah is significantly less than Texas, which was much, much higher. It ranged between, well, its peak amount would have been about 40 million tons of coal. Yeah. So the last question is, what is the relationship between the expenditure and production of coal, the coal industry in both Utah and Texas? So for this graph, both of these graphs, we see a scatter plot which represents expenditure, which is pretty much just money that goes into the industry, and the production amount, how much is actually produced as a result. The different dots represent, I guess, different locations where coal is produced. This data is in fact unexpected from what was initially believed, because I had initially believed that there would be a direct relationship between the expenditure put into the coal industry in both Utah and Texas and the production of coal as a result. So this may be attributed to how much money or type of resource is given to improve production, and the information may also be skewed due to the fact that small mines may require a lot of money to extract a small amount of coal, or that very little money is actually required to extract coal, and that is why the graph looks as it does. So to wrap it up, social impacts. Certain people are affected by the results of this data, and the amount of coal that's produced, the amount that's consumed, and so forth. So people searching for coal mining jobs may be interested in which state actually produces the most coal or is the highest in coal demand. Government officials and representatives are looking to fund or defund these different industries, and these people need to know how much coal is currently being produced and how dependent we as a society are on coal as a source of energy. Finally, pro-Green Party supporters or scientists that say, well, coal is actually very bad for the environment and should not be burned as much as it is. They would like to know how dependent we actually are as a society on coal. And there can be potential conflicts as well between these stakeholders. The coal miners want more government subsidies so that they get paid for and so that they can produce more coal with less effort. Whereas the government officials have to use taxpayer dollars to support these industries. Scientists and Green Party supporters would also find reason to defund this industry, and conflicts may arise between representatives who claim that coal is important to our economy. Here, as I said before, is the full data structure for my energy list dataset, and the honor code, and the works cited for the external source. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.